Hello, fifth grade again. We're going to also be doing a page tonight on shift and verb tenses. We're talking about subject-verb agreement in our sentences and how we want to make sure that our verbs agree with our subjects, but we also want to make sure that, like we talked about with our tenses, we have our verbs stay the same tense throughout our writing. I have seen several times where you can start writing in present tense and then all of a sudden shift to past tense, or you're writing in past tense and all of a sudden use present tense in your verb usage. That makes writing and reading very confusing, and so we're going to do a page in our notebook about this so that we can make sure and have that something that we can study. So we have our shift and verb tenses, which again you can color in any way that you want to. We're also going to be using both sides of a book page here. So I've got my spiral open, and on the left hand side of the page I'm going to be doing the first part of this, and then we're going to write some examples over here on the right side of the page. So we're going to start off obviously with putting our shift and verb tenses here, just like this. And let's glue that down at the very tip top of the page. Then you've got this sheet right here that is the little person in the jail, and it says don't be caught shifting verb tenses. What I'm going to ask you to do on that is to cut this part off and around like this, and we'll kind of cut this out too, because we will be using this in later in another area. So we'll just cut this out real quick. And I'm not going to cut, just real close to it. I just want to make sure and leave some edges around here just so I know it doesn't get too cut off. So, and again, if you need to pause this to cut yours out or to write at any time, please feel free to do so. Okay, so you're going to take this part and you're going to put it right kind of in the middle of the page so that you have some lines up here and some lines down here to write. So we'll glue this down. Okay. And one of the things that you're going to want to say is the tense of a verb shows the time when the action takes place. Okay? So that's going to be written up here. The tense of the verb shows the time when the action of the sentence takes place. Period. And then down underneath here where you've got this space, we're going to write shifting between verb tenses. So shifting between verb tenses while writing causes confusion because the reader doesn't know which is correct. Doesn't know which is correct. Okay, so again, the tense of the verb shows the time when the action of the sentence takes place. And if you switch your tenses between present and past, or past and even future tense, things like that, it can really confuse the reader because we don't know suddenly when this action is taking place. Is it happening now? Is it happening earlier? When is this happening? So let's move over here to the second page over here. And if you can hear something going on in the background, that's just one of my cats deciding to try to jump up on the back of my chair as I'm doing my video here. And I'm right now going to be cutting out the handcuffs that we have, because we're going to put those on the top of the page just to have a little something extra. So sorry, I don't have that under the camera. I'm so sorry. Alright, so now we've got our little handcuffs here. Aren't they cute? And we're just going to put those just somewhere on the top of the page, just to reiterate the point that you do not want to get caught changing tenses in your sentences. So let's look at an example here. Oops, you're seeing my little cheat sheet kind of come in on the side there, I think. Over here. And an incorrect example of how you would write this. Incorrect example would be something like, yesterday I went to the zoo and it is fun. And so if you have that, yesterday is when it happened. I went to the zoo. And it is fun. Well, now you've got the past tense right here and the present tense right here. So that's not correct, obviously. We went to the zoo and it was fun. So the correct version of this would be, yesterday I went to the zoo, comma, and it was fun. Okay? Went and was, those are both the past tense of the verb go and is. So you want to make sure and have that, those two correct. Here's another incorrect example here. Incorrect. And we could say, Sam skated in the park and falls down. Sam skated in the park and falls down. Well, obviously skated is the past tense, falls is the present tense, so that is really confusing when you're reading that. You would write it correctly as, Sam skated in the park and fell down. So again, whenever you're writing, please just make sure that you do not shift your tenses. You do not want your tenses to start out in one tense, like this, went, in the past tense, and end up in the present tense, is, right here. Okay? You need to keep them in the same tenses. And that's part of having your subject-verb agreement. So, once you get all these done, we will be going over this some more this week. So I will see you. Have a good night. Good night.